Hey guys, here's part 2 to my situation of the car conundrum. So back in January, I was bringing my son back to college from his spring break, from his winter break, right? So I, when I dropped him off, I went food shopping or whatever, and I was on my way back home. And so on my way back home, I got pulled over by the state police. And I'm like, oh man. So I automatically thought, because I have a rejection sticker on my car, I'm like, okay, he's pulling me over for that because, I didn't get the bumper fixed yet. So, and that was from 2024. So, and we're in 2025. So I was like, I'm thinking that that's the reason that I got pulled over. So I pulled over and I'm like, oh, he's going to give me a ticket and I'm going to be on my way, right? So he pulls me over and then he's telling me why he stopped me or whatever. And then I'm like, so he was like, ask for my information. So I gave him all my information. He comes back with a ticket or whatever. I'm not a ticket like this, some printout or whatever. And he's like, I'm going to have to tow your car and you're going to have to find a way home. And I'm like, what you talking about? And then he was like, did you know that XYZ? So he's telling me all these things. And I'm like, what? I was like, no. I was like, I don't know how that could be. So, I don't want to get into, the details, but it caused me to have to get my car towed. So I was like, oh my God. So I was like, well, who am I going to call? So I said, well, let me see if my son can come and get me, my oldest son. I called him, and so he was available. So I said, yes, so he was able to come and get me. So I had to drive with the tow people in my car to the tow lot, and I waited for my son to get there. So then my son gets there, and we're on our way home, and so I'm like, dang, I was like, let me call around so I can see how much it's going to cost for this car to get towed. So when I started calling around, they was all like 3, 4, 5. I'm like, what? Because by the time I got pulled over in Concord, my son's school is like not too far from there. So that's way far from where I was going. And I'm like, oh my goodness. And I was like, well, I'm going to leave this car here because, I didn't have the income. So I was like, dang. So my son's like, no, don't give up so easy. No, it's going to work out or whatever, I got you. So I was able to get my car towed. My son got me, so I was able to get my car towed or whatever, and so I was happy to get my car back to me. But from that situation, my car being on the street, I kept getting ticket after ticket after ticket after ticket. So I was all like, oh my God. And then they gave me a ticket and they said, if I get another ticket, I'm going to get a boot. And I said, I can't afford a boot. So I asked my landlord, can I put my car in the driveway? And that's when she allowed me to put the car in the driveway. And I was like, thank you. So that stopped that, so I was like, dag. But lo and behold, along with that towed, I had to go to court for that. So yesterday was my court date, and I was like, oh my goodness. So as like the Lord knows, like I despise the law in every facet of the word law. Police, freaking lawyers, judges, anybody. I don't care. I despise it, right? And so I have a lot of traumatizing history for that. So I was like, oh my God. I said, Lord, when I go to this court case, I said, I need this case to be dismissed or whatever. I said, because I don't want to ever step foot back into another courtroom again. I said, I better be in and out. This better be quick, fast, and in hurry. I need to be in and out. I was all like, and I was all like, and I hope that the daggone, police don't show up because I don't want to see nobody's face, right? So this was what I was saying. So when yesterday, I was in such a peaceful, serene mood, like nothing. I was just so like literally on cloud 9. I was just so in a calming, I was just at peace, calm, relaxed, and I was ready. My faith was up. I was walking with my chest up, head high, and my confidence was skyrocketing. So I go there. I had to catch an Uber there, and I was like, okay, cool. So I got there at 10:25. At the time was 11 o'clock for my case. So I was early. So I sat around or whatever. Then 11 o'clock came. They called me right at 11. And so I look and the cops there and I'm like, ugh. So I was all like being pleasant, and then so I get in there and then the judge is like, she's like, so you know why you're here? I said, yes. And then she said, well, did you do anything with the car? And I said, no. I said, I didn't get a chance to fix it or any of that. She's like, why? I said, because I used the car for the way a means of making my money. So because the car is the way it is and I can't drive it, I can't make any money. And she's like, well, why? I said, I am an independent contractor, and that's what I use my vehicle to work. I said, and since my vehicle cannot be driven, I cannot work. And she was like, so what are you doing? I said, well, I have been looking for work in other fields, but because that's my main, field, I've been having a hard time finding work in other fields. So it's going to take me some time. So she said, how long do you think it's going to take? I said, I don't know. And she was all like, so she says something to the cop, and she's like, what do you have on her? And I'm like, what you mean, what you have on me, right? I looked at the cop, and he got a piece of paper, and he got some information on it. So he's like, well, I don't have anything on her since 2012. And then I'm like, looking like 2012. And then she said, what else? And he's like, that's it. And I'm like, I'm looking at them like, what? I am not a criminal. Why are y'all looking at me like I'm a criminal? Like, what else am I supposed to have? Like, what? Like, they were acting like they were disappointed because I didn't have no other charges or whatever that they can, get me on, in regarding this situation. And I'm looking at them like, I am so tripped out. Like, what? I was like, man. And so she's like, oh my God. She's all like, well, what are we going to do? And I'm looking at her like, what? Ain't this your job? Ain't this what you do? I was like, I am in the twilight zone or something. I said, who is playing a prank on me? Because what? She was all like, oh my God. Well, she kept doing stuff like that. And I'm looking at her. And then a cop was sitting there with the paper in his hand. He was furious. One of his legs was going and everything, and he was just sitting there with the paper, and he was furious. He was just looking straight at her, and I'm looking at her, I'm looking at him, I'm like, what? They were pissed off because they didn't have anything else on me but that, and that wasn't nothing. It wasn't enough for them to do anything. So she was like, do you think you can fix the car, get the car, fixed up or whatever by October 29th of 2025? And I was like, yes. She was like, you can? I said, yes, I can. With confidence and with straight yes. With the knowledge of, yes, I know I can. And it will be done. And she was like, okay. So then she proceeded with whatever. And then, she was like, and I asked her a couple of questions that I had or whatever. And then she asked the cop, did he have anything else to say? And the cop was just sitting there, and he would not say nothing. He was just sitting there straight faced, looking straight at her. He was all angry. And then I was like, I was like, oh my, I said, Lord, I said, I need you to hurry up and get this thing done and over and get me up out of here, because I ain't got time for this. Because I started to get agitated. And when I get agitated, I have a sarcastic mouth. I was about to become sarcastic because some of my answers that I was giving her was getting to a sarcastic tone to a bit. And I said, let me reel it back in. I said, because I'm around too many people who got guns. And you know how I feel about them already. So let me reel it back in and be on my best behavior. And then literally as soon as I did that and said that or whatever, she was like, okay, well, this is what you got to do, and da-da-da-da, boom, 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 and everything. And then I was like, okay. And then she's like, you're all set. You can go. And I was like, thank you. And then I walked right past them, but I was looking at them out of the peripheral of my eyes, and I just kept it moving. And then, I went to the bathroom, and then I said, well, let me call my son and see if he could come and get me. And thankfully, he was able to come and get me. So I said, well, I'm going to go outside so I could eat my fruit, because I had my bananas and grapes. So I said, let me go outside, eat my fruit, and wait for him. And then, thankfully, my son did not take long. It did not take him long to come and get me. And when he came and got me, I saw my grandson and everything. And I was like, oh, my God. So I got a chance to spend time with them. And then I got a chance to have them bring the battery. Since the battery, I didn't bring it that day. So once my son came, I said, well, son, can you bring me to AutoZone to bring it to the shop so they can recharge it? He did so. So he was able to do that for me. And then I spent some time with my grand and my son, and we was talking and enjoying each other's company or presence. And now I'm on my way to work, and I'm going to go pick up the battery so we can get this car battery in there, and we can get this ball jumping and on and going. And so I wanted to read to you from Ephesians 3:20, which it says, now unto him that is able to do exceedingly above all that we ask or think, according to the power that worketh within us. So, that being said, God did above and beyond what I could ask, above and beyond what I could think of. And he gave me everything that I asked for, and more, to where I don't have to worry about having a record, I don't have to worry about going back to court and being in these people's face. And I'm able to move freely and do what it is I need to do with God in my car. And I have plenty enough time, and I have faith, and I know that car is going to be on the road up and running again way before October 29th. And so I'm just like, the Lord was above and beyond. Like I have faith, and I asked, and I spoke myself into existence, and almost everything that happened that I asked for happened. I got to see my son. I got to see my grandson. I got to get the battery to AutoZone. I got this case, dismissed. I don't have to worry about a record, and all of these things, because they didn't have anything on me. And then it was like, well, what the heck would you have? What would you have on me? There ain't nothing for you to have on me. What the heck? I'm not a criminal. I don't be out here doing anything because I don't like the law. You think I'm going to be out here doing things to break the law? No, that is stupid. That's asinine. So I'm not that. And then I was like, well, what happened in 2012 that they had on me that they was like, that's all they had? And then I remembered it was I had another situation with a car, that I had, right? And so my ball joints or whatever on that car was out. So I had a rejection sticker again. And so I had an interview because I was like, I got to get this job. So I had an interview. And I'm telling you right now, like I said, the Lord speaks to me through visions, and I can hear him or whatever, and I just sometimes just know, I just have that unction, right? So the Lord told me, go down Blue Hill Ave. And then I'm like, Lord, Blue Hill Ave has a lot of lights. This is my conversation with the Lord. I said, Lord, the Blue Hill Ave has a lot of lights. I like to go through the back road so I don't have to deal with the lights. So I want to get there quick. So the Lord kept saying, I kept hearing Blue Hill Ave. And I'm like, I'm going to the back roads, right? So I get in the car, I go through the back road, and lo and behold, the cops are all along the back road that I'm going because they were detailing the roads and stuff. And I'm like, dang! I'm like, damn it, I didn't listen. So I was like, oh, and I didn't have no way, literally no way to do no U-turns, nothing. I had to go past the cops. So I was like, oh, I should have listened. So I go past them, and then they was like, I could see them in the rear mirror, like, pull over. And I'm like, Dad. Pulls over. He's like, looking at the rejection sticker. He's looking at everything, and he's like, okay, cool. He's like, well, you're going to have to get a ticket. And I said, okay, fine. And so he gives me the ticket. And then I was all like, he didn't tell me that you can't go. He didn't tell me that you can't go where you're going. Or he didn't even tell me to go home. He just was like, you're getting a ticket, and that's it. And then he was like, all right, have a nice day. And he sent me on about my way. But because I got a ticket, and because I was disobedient and I didn't listen, I was angry at myself. I went straight on home, and I said, forget that daggone, forget that, situation. And so I didn't go. So I wound up not paying that ticket. And they kept sending me ticket after ticket after ticket, and I didn't pay any of those tickets. That wound up revoking my license because of that. And so since my license was revoked, that's the incident he was talking about. He was talking about my license getting revoked because of the ticket, the non-payment of the ticket or whatever. But I wound up getting my license back eventually. But, it took some time because I was jobless at the time. And so that was the 2012 incident that he was talking about, that he was, that they had on me. But other than that, they didn't have anything else on me from 2012 till now. And they were livid. And I was confused, and I was pissed off too, because I'm looking at them like, why would I have something on my car, or why would I be out here doing something illegal or whatever? I'm like, the way y'all was looking at me, like, I don't know, because I was the only one who was my skin color in the whole entire building. Everybody who came in and everybody who went out was not my skin color, except for one young lady that came in before I got called. She was my skin color, but we were the only two people that was our color, and everybody else was not. And I was all looking at them like, what? I was pissed. And I was all like, you know what? Get me up out of here. But like I said, God could do above all that you can think and that you can ask, because, I asked and I believed, and I went in there with my head up, and they was so nervous, and I know that the reason why they was all like that is because of who I am, because my spirit, the spirit within me, intimidated them, and this is why they were mad, and this is how come they were confused. And I'm like, yo, this is your job. How you not know what you doing? You the judge, and how you talking about well, what are we gonna do? What do you mean, what are we gonna do? You the judge. You the reason I'm here. I ain't here on my own accord. It's because of y'all. And then you sitting up there like, you all like, oh my God, like, and then she's like to the cop's like, and everybody's quiet, and everybody's looking like they don't know what to do, and I'm looking like, are you serious? Like, are you serious? It's like, get me up out of here. Listen, you got to go in there with faith. You got to go in there bold, with your head up, and know who you are and whose you are. That's why they was confused. You got to confuse the enemy. And that's exactly what happened, because they just swore they was going to have all these charges and all this against me, and they had nothing. And they didn't. And then they was like, well, what? And I'm like, well, nothing. Let me go. And they had to do just that. Let me go. Because they had nothing. I am a law-abiding citizen. I'm not going to be sitting around here getting in trouble and doing stuff that I know, so I don't have to deal with crap like that. But I'm so grateful, because the Lord, like, listen, I ain't got to go back. I ain't got to deal with them. I don't have no record. I have the time, like I said, to do all I have to do. And I have faith. I know that car's about to be on the road. She's almost there. But because I've had limited help and limited funds, to be honest, because I'm down to one income now when I had 3. So, again, it's all in the Lord's hands. But, faith without works is dead. You got to have faith. You got to do what you got to do, and you cannot stop until it's done. But the main thing is, you do your portion, and the Lord will do the rest. That's it. But anything you do, you have to always believe. You cannot go in any situation. Now, had I woke up with an attitude and feeling like I was defeated and like, because I don't want to be, it could have probably turned out to be a different scenario. It could have probably turned out to be different. But my attitude, was of gratitude, and I didn't allow this situation to defeat me, because I already knew I won, because the battle's not mine, it's the Lord's, and it's already won. It is. That is the truth. You have to know that, though. And so I just hope that inspired someone. Again, I want to hear from you guys. Give me some likes, some comments, and let me know. Let me hear some of your testimonies and your stories or whatever. But until then, I really appreciate you listening. And until next time, have a blessed day, guys.